fan of that. I think another call out there is Riley's Archaludon. The Draco Meteor versus Dragon Pulse debate. Riley still firmly remains in the Dragon Pulse camp, just to get that consistent damage without a missed chance. We're jumping right into game number 1. It's going to be Collin's Dragapult and Electabuzz against Riley's Pelipper and Basculegion.
So what's really interesting about this is that with Basculegion having a Swift Swim ability, it actually has a really good speed matchup into Dragapult, one of the fastest Pokemon in this format.
And it is threatening with the super effective Last Respects. Unfortunately though, since it is not boosted by any of Riley's Pokemon being knocked out, I do believe Dragapult has a shot to survive one Last Respects, even with that Life Orb. Might let it stick around, fire off some like a Dragon Darts, get some damage out, even a Phantom Force for some big damage. And Electabuzz thinks because it has that Thunderbolt, actually is threatening a 1-hit KO on Pelipper.
But you also have the opportunity to go for something like the Follow Me, so even if you weren't totally confident in the fact that your Dragapult could handle the Last Respect, you do have the opportunity to use that redirection if you want to. Riley has set the rain though, and he's very happy with that being Pelipper's first order of business. Gonna go ahead and let that retreat back into its Pokeball, and you're gonna see another one of Riley's Pokemon revealed as the Basculegion does get that Terra.
Immediately goes for that Water-type Terastallization, will boost the damage of the the Wave Crash and the Aqua Jet, and drop the weakness to Ghost, which could come in handy here.
Yeah, when you take a look at this Electabuzz going for the Protect, it's actually not going to be the Electabuzz that was at the receiving end of that attack. It's just going to be this Wave Crash. So Wave Crash with the Terra in the rain.
Wow.
Even though the Dragapult resists that, it is a one-hit knockout. This Basculegion, though, has to take a lot of recoil from all of that damage it just dealt.
Recoil from the damage and the Life Orb could be very relevant here, but that's a huge KO. Dragapult is a big source of offense for a team like Collins, and having it off the board right off the bat is major. Of course, the Last Respects may not have been able to do it, but resisted Terra Water, Wave Crash in the rain, just like the Charizard Overheat from last round, enough to pick up KOs on resisted targets. That's a rough loss for Collin there. You saw him eyeing the possibility of going for something like Thunderbolt or Follow Me with that Electabuzz prior to that first turn, and maybe wishing he had, because that Dragapult is gone. You didn't give our Chaludon a stamina boost when it came in. I guess that's something, but a rough loss for Collin there. 0 damage dealt and 1 Pokemon lost.
This Volcarona is going to have its work cut out for it as well, but at the very least, it's got Electabuzz, its trusty partner, to help it out to do just that. It's going to take another attack from this Basculegion. It goes for yet another Wave Crash, and that's another one-hit knockout for this Basculegion. That's 2 in a row now for this fish.
Yeah, 2 one-hit knockouts there, taking a lot of damage from recoil, almost taking itself out right off the bat. But Quiver Dance does get set up. Speed, special attack, and special defense will all be boosted on this Volcarona, which will help it take on this Archaludon a little bit better. I don't actually know how the speeds work out, if this Volcarona will be able to outspeed Basculegion in rain with that Swift Swim boost after only 1 Quiver Dance.
I don't think so. I think it's
going to be close, if not.
I think, yeah, it's a little close to call, but it's also going to have to take this Electro Shot first. So even if it wasn't going to be if it's not faster at all, it's just going to get knocked out to the Basculegion.
Especially because Aqua Jet is still on the table, right? It's not Choice Band Basculegion. You have the option to switch up moves, protect yourself from a possible Fake Out or Grassy Glide this turn, and then go for Aqua Jet in this Volcarona. It is the Terra Fairy. It's not Terra Grass or Water like we often see on these Quiver Dance sets. So even though you can Terastallize away from the Water weakness, between the Life Orb, the Terra Water, the Rain, Aqua Jet might just be enough for a KO regardless.
So I like the Grassy Glide option here. At least you know you're going to be able to knock out the Basculegion, or you force it into a position where it's going to have to protect instead. But you're really hoping at this point you can knock the Basculegion out, you can get rid of the rain, and then somehow figure out a way to deal with this Archaludon. You know that the Terra has already been committed onto the Basculegion, so you don't have to worry about this Archaludon tearing away to a Grass Terra, so you can still dish out that Rillaboom high horsepower damage.
Even though, like, the high horsepower might come through once, but if it doesn't, after that, the stamina boost is going to give it a defense boost, and then you're going to have a hard time getting rid of this Archaludon. Grassy Glide does go into the Protect from the Basculegion. No damage will be dealt to it this turn, and Electroshock comes through into the Rillaboom, so Riley making all the correct calls this game.
What's also wild about Electroshot, though, is that even if you're actually not going to hit your target, you're still going to get the special attack boost.
You're right.
So now this Archaludon is going to be at +2. But you almost kind of wish it had gone to the Rillaboom, at least to start chipping away at it. It has an Assault Vest though, so it would be able to stay a little bit more healthy, but you still have to deal with the Rillaboom now.
Volcarona going to Terrasilize, try and take away that water type weakness, maybe allow it to survive an Aqua Jet. Thanks to the Swift Swim, Aqua Jet and Grassy Glide are the same priority, but Basculegion's Aqua Jet will go first with that speed boost. So Riley will have the chance to go for this Aqua Jet, try and knock out Volcarona before it can use this Terra Blast.
Oh my gosh, it is so close. It is going to survive that attack, but that Aqua Jet almost knocked out this Volcarona before it got a chance to move. Terra Blast into this Archaludon is going to do a wallop of damage though. Even with that Assault Vest, that Quiver Dance really coming in clutch to make sure it could boost up that Volcarona's attack. We do see this Volcarona get knocked out for its troubles, but you know the Rillaboom gets a chance to follow up into that damage and hopefully just get the knockout here.
Yeah, knockout would be nice. High horsepower comes through, but because the stamina did activate on that Terra Blast, it is barely just not enough to KO our Chaludon. It is now one Pokemon to Riley's three. Still all three left. The Pelipper didn't get knocked out. We haven't even seen Riley's fourth. This is going to be really difficult for Collin. You can knock out the Basculegion this turn, you know, maybe take your pity KO there, but at this point, a Hurricane, something from this Archaludon, which we did see outspeed Rillaboom notably, should be more than enough damage to clean up this game.
Yeah, the Basculegion securing 2 KOs back-to-back turns just put Collin in such a difficult position.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to come back from that because you just don't necessarily have enough HP when you look at how fast these metagames can play out.
Yeah, I mean, Riley still has 3 Pokemon remaining. We've seen this body press. Two more would knock out this Rillaboom. Rillaboom not even able to knock out Archaludon in 1 more hit. So going to be very difficult for Collin to stay in this game any longer. Riley just sent out the Pelipper, not wanting to reveal the 4th Pokemon, which I think is a very smart play there, just to keep a little bit of info hidden. In this open team sheet era, if you can take any of these hidden bits of information and keep them hidden, that can be a big advantage going into a second game. But if you're Collin, how do you adjust to that? You saw the Wave Crash knock out your resisted Dragon-type Dragapult. Do you maybe sacrifice the Electabuzz to it on that first turn to gain some time? Like, I don't know how you handle that.
Do you bring in Dondozo?
I mean, you could.
Like, it's so tough. Like, Dondozo actually does have some pretty good defensive coverage.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that you're a water type as well. You're going to be able to help out just a little bit versus the Basculegion. But the problem with that is you're kind of just bulk.
Yeah.
So can you actually deal enough damage with what you have with Wave Crash and Yawn? Can you slow down the game long enough to actually give yourself a bit more breathing room? Riley is going to take that first game after Collin locks in the forfeit and thinks about what to do in this next game.
It's really tough. That Basculegion is so hard to deal with because even as you've seen, a resistance to Wave Crash doesn't mean a whole lot when it's being boosted by the Rain, by the Terra Water, by the Life Orb. And it like the speed as well. The Swift Swim allows it to be attacking before anything else. And when you have something that strong and that fast without a way to prevent it from attacking pretty quickly, it's tough to deal with. I think Dondozo could be a nice call from Collin. Of course, the Unaware would allow it to sit in front of that Archaludon as well. You probably have to Terrasilize and not take too much damage from those Electro shots, but the boosted special attack will mean nothing in front of Unaware. You can maybe take advantage of Riley's own Rain with the Wave Crash, and of course you have Fissure to try and go for a 1-hit KO into something like that bulky Archaludon.
You could also consider leading the Rillaboom, but the problem that comes with that is that without something like the Grassy Seed or Metal Plate, you actually don't think get the 1-hit knockout onto the Basculegion, even with Grassy Glide.
It's just bulky enough to usually survive one of those, and I think if you're running a team like this with the Basculegion, you're going to make sure it's trained to survive that attack most of the time. And of course, Basculegion almost always supported by that Pelipper, which is threatening a big Hurricane into that Rillaboom if it does stay on the field as well. Archaludon is like a really perfect swap into Basculegion because it is going to resist either an electric move from Electabuzz or the grass move from the Rillaboom. And so it's tough because if you try and go for a Grassy Glide, you might just accidentally give Archaludon a stamina boost and do almost no damage to it in the meantime.
And we have seen before that those can get very, very out of hand. And this Archaludon on Riley's team does have body press, so you don't want to give that too many opportunities to stack up those stamina boosts and actually go for something like body press. You don't have great resists to it either. Outside of, well, the Dragapult's immunity, Sneasler, I guess.
Does Sneasler really truly resist anything? It's not the bulkiest of Pokemon. The Focus Sash is really important.
I was really looking at the Focus Sash as kind of like a saving grace there.
It's a one-time resist for everything.
No, but I think it is a tough adjustment for Collin to have to look at and consider what to do in this game number 2, because leading the Dragapult right away, allowing it to get knocked out so early, was certainly something that caught it by surprise. But here is that adjustment. The Rillaboom is going to lead the charge for Collin in this game number 2 as Riley runs back this Rain duo.
And I like that. The Rillaboom at least threatens, hey, if you go for that big wave crash, I just knock you out with either the Grassy Glide or the Wood Hammer right afterwards. This Pellet Bird does threaten the Rillaboom with a Hurricane, of course, but thanks to that Assault Vest, it should be able to survive one without much trouble. If you do want to knock out this Dragapult, I'm sure that Water Translation is important. So even if you're Collin, you could try and take advantage of that. Like if you do go for that Terra right away, that means it's being committed and you can possibly try and play around it later on. But getting an attack off with Dragapult, I think, is important here, because if you don't, you're just losing such an important piece of offense for nothing.
Well, time to figure out, well, never mind. I was going to say maybe we figure out whether or not this Rillaboom can actually get the KO here. But Riley is going to reveal a Moongus in the second game. Did not see it in game number 1, and in fact, Riley's going to do something that we don't see a lot of players do. It's just going to be a double swap. So switching in the Sarchaludon as well as the Amoonguss. So the Amoonguss has to take this Grassy Glide, which it takes very, very comfortably thanks to its resist. But the Dragon Darts, there's one stamina boost, so the defense is going to go up. If it was going to take that second Dragon Darts, it would have taken it much more comfortably as well.
Nice chunk of damage on both of these Pokemon, but unfortunately just not enough. This Amoonguss surely able to survive a combination of Dragon Darts and high horsepower coming out, because it does have that Citrus Berry. And our Charlodon with that first stamina boost, only getting more and more scary if you do leave your 2 physical Pokemon on the field.
That's a Terrestrialization commit, though. And so we are going to end up seeing the Sarchaludon take over that Grass Terra, and so that is one way that you can make yourself much less vulnerable to something like that high horsepower on the Rillaboom. Kind of leaves you open a little bit to maybe do something else with this Amoonguss rather than just have to go for a Rage Powder. Here's another stamina stack for this Sarchaludon. And this Amoonguss is going to take a little bit more damage as well. That Citrus Berry, though, is going to help heal up so much of the damage already dealt to it and give itself the opportunity to do something else in this game.
Dragon Pulse comes through into the Dragapult. It is enough for the one-hit KO, even without an Electroshock boost. So that is a big deal for Riley there. This Archaludon is now at plus, this is going to be 3 defense. That did nothing. It's a +3 defense. It is a grass type. It's got some nice resistances. And Amoonguss does go for Spore, probably trying to catch that Dragapult if it opted to switch out. Maybe Spore something that come in. But Amoonguss didn't really have too much to do that game, that turn anyway, rather. And now this Archaludon is a grass type. Notably, that means this Volcarona is threatening it with a super effective Heat Wave. But you do have the Rain up still, and you have the Assault Vest, so one Heat Wave might not be enough for the KO, and this Amoonguss also benefits from the Rain as well.
And you could just go for something like a Pollen Puff into your Archaludon. So with those +3 defense boosts, yes please, I'm also going to be very healthy to keep those.
Yeah, that Pollen Puff would actually be so scary right now. I imagine that a combination of Wood Hammer and Heat Wave probably is not enough because of the Rain for the knockout. And if you do spend your turn targeting that Charlodon with both of your Pokemon, and it just gets healed all the way up with Pollen Puff, that's such a waste of a turn while Riley gets to do some damage with this Charlodon.
The switch out here in the Sneasler is so scary as well, because you know that Focus Sash is going to be able to help you for one turn at the very least, but you still have to do maybe some recovery here.
Yeah.
This Amoonguss also doesn't even go for the side Pollen Puff. It's just going to use its own Regenerator ability to switch off the field, get some HP recovery, and we're going to see this Basculegion take its place. Body Press, look at that! Sneasler takes half HP from that!
That's really big too, because this Focus Sash has now been broken. This Basculegion can't be faked out, of course, because it is a ghost type. And now this Sneasler probably just gets knocked out by a Wave Crash before it can even do anything. I understand bringing Sneasler in there. You threaten super effective Dire Claws. Of course, some of the Dire Claw, Poison Touch shenanigans, trying to get some status onto that Archaludon. But a really smart swap into that Basculegion. It would have been a really risky play to just go straight for a Grass type move into that Amoonguss. So now Archaludon is being protected from the Sneasler by this Basculegion, threatening a huge Wave Crash.
Ooh, well the Wave Crash goes into the Rillaboom though. That is still a ton, even with the Rain, even without the Terra, that Rillaboom is going to be in a world of hurt. But you do allow this Sneasler to get the Dire Claw and it puts their Archaludon asleep. This is going to buy Collin some much valuable time to actually see if they can get themselves back into this game number 2.
That's actually really huge. Now this Archaludon is asleep, you have the option to go for 1 or 2 more Dire Claws into that slot. With the stamina boost, it's going to be at least 2 more Dire Claws, if not more, to KO it. But switching in Rillaboom also means that you soak up that Wave Crash as best you can. You're now threatening a KO with Grassy Glide, which means your Sneasler can attack before it gets knocked out by a Wave Crash from that Basculegion. So now Collin's put himself in a much stronger offensive position than we've seen at all throughout this whole set.
I think he just has to keep wailing away at this Archaludon, though, because as soon as that wakes up, or as soon as Amoonguss comes in and gets a Pollen Puff into it, that Archaludon is going to be unstoppable. But you're right about that. Basculegion has softened up just enough that this Grassy Glide on grassy terrain should be able to get the KO here. Time to find out.
It's going to be tough. We saw Collin lock into a pretty risky play, but looks like it's going to pay off here. Basculegion switches out, does not want to be knocked out by a Grassy Glide, and in comes Amoonguss.
Hey, so Amoonguss now actually going to be able to come back in with a bit more HP recovery. Regenerator really coming in clutch, but it's the Volcarona that now takes this Rillaboom's place. And it makes a lot of sense because what if you end up losing your grassy terrain at some point? You've got the Dire Claw activated into the Amoonguss to get the paralysis, but Archaludon gets that 1-turn wake up, which is just brutal for Collin to have to deal with. You get the Electro Shot. I think the Electro Shot damage, even just with the special attack boost into either of these Pokemon, is going to be not great.
Yeah, and Sneasler surely gets knocked out by this Electro Shot as well. Collin made a great play there, reading that the Basculegion would switch out, gets some important damage on Amoonguss, give himself the chance to get another status on it, and does get the paralysis, which could come in handy, but unfortunately that Archaludon does wake up on its first possible turn. And the Volcarona switch also very smart, because if the Basculegion does switch out to Amoonguss like you're predicting, you're now threatening 2 grass types with a Heat Wave, with the possibility of trying to go for something like a Quiver Dance as well. Just unfortunate that the Archaludon didn't stay asleep any longer. Now Riley has the option to switch that Pelipper back in, reset the rain, protect these 2 grass types from any fire type damage once again, and of course this Archaludon in the rain with the 1 special attack boost, with the 3 stamina boost, is looking really difficult to take down once again.
It's tough because I think you can bring the Pelipper back into the Amoonguss slot very comfortably, get more Regenerator healing onto the Amoonguss. And Riley still has so many more Pokemon to play around with outside of that. So here's the first switch. It is going to be the Pelipper to come in, keep that Grass Terror Archaludon just a little bit safer from some of these fire type attacks. And now the Pelipper also comes in to threaten something like a Weather Ball. So Fake Out, yes, it feels so bad in this situation to give this Archaludon a 4th stamina boost, but it buys you some time to go for this Quiver Dance, and maybe this is what you need to weave in. You've got to use special attack to get past this Archaludon now.
I think you might need to go for a second Quiver Dance just to outspeed that Basculegion. Maybe Collin knows how these Pokemon are trained, and like maybe one's enough, but I do want to say that you need a second one just to ensure that you're outspeeding that Swift Swim Basculegion, and because Pelipper did come back in, reset that rain, it means that the Swift Swim will be active for at least 4 more turns.
But the Heat Wave has got to clean it up now, and it's just not enough. The Archaludon is able to hang on, and this is going to give Riley a path to victory. The body press to KO the Rillaboom before it gets a chance to move. Woodhammer would have been able to pick up the KO onto that Pelipper, but with the Hurricane into the Volcarona, this is going to be very close to sealing the deal here for Riley to win this set 2-0.
That damage is probably enough just for the win right there. The Basculegion rather, with that Aqua Jet, even if it doesn't outspeed, we'll have the option for that priority attack. We do still have the option for that Fairy Terastallization, and the Basculegion on Riley's side cannot become the Water Terra, so maybe this Terastallization is a big difference for Collin here, but at the same time, Heat Wave probably not taking out Pelipper. You still have to deal with that Pelipper firing off another Hurricane, possibly a Weather Ball, and that Archaludon sticking around means that Pelipper did get that big Hurricane off into Volcarona.
Oh, and Heat Wave, it is going to miss. It's going to miss the Archaludon, which is critical because you would have loved to get the knockout into that. So if it wasn't going to seal the deal before, it is certainly going to now. Archaludon getting a final Electro Shot boost to make sure it is going to be dealing the maximum amount of damage possible in this game. And Volcarona is out of here, down for the count. And Riley Factura going to be undefeated after 8 rounds of Swiss today.
So impressive. Just the way that he can start off any season, any new regulation, any new set of Pokemon, and just pick the Pokemon that he resound, that's the word. Pick the Pokemon that resound with him the most, and just immediately find success. It's such a hallmark of an incredible player, just like Riley is. Of course, Collin too in his own right is 7-1, is, you know, 1 win away from that maximum wins on that first day. But Riley has set himself up so well to try and grab a spot in tomorrow's top cut.